This video will look at a new utility in WillowWare's consulting toolkit. The new utility is called GP Report Extender, or GPREX for short. GPREX is a small enhancement for the GP report writer that makes it really easy to add any data from any SQL table onto any report writer report. You can pull data from core GP tables, from third-party products, from custom products. You can even pull information from other databases. We're going to take a look at an example in this demo of doing just that, where we'll pull data out of a table from a different database from the one where we're running the report. This slide is a high-level summary of how GP Report Extender functions. It requires adding a calculated field onto the GP report. You use one of these two report writer functions that are part of core Dynamics GP, the RW table line string function or the RW table line currency function. And then you need to do a little bit of SQL scripting. The GPREX adds a couple of stored procedures called WRW table get line string and WRW table get line currency. So the stored procedure is where the actual coding will happen to pull data from another table. You don't need to use you don't need to use VBA, or you don't need to know dexterity. This is just pretty basic SQL script writing. The stored procedure then, pretty much anything you can do with the stored procedure is what you'll be able to do with GP Report Extender. So if you can use SQL to get at the data or do a calculation or do a text transformation or whatever you want it to do, you'll be able to do that with GP Report Extender and make that information appear on a GP report. For this demo, we're going to do a really simple modification to the detailed item list. This is the report that you print from the item maintenance window. I just wanted to keep this really simple so that we can look at the principle involved and take a look at how this GP Report Extender functions without getting buried into something overly complex with lots of parameters and a complicated SQL query. The principle will be the same regardless of what you're doing. So we're just going to do something really pretty basic so that it's pretty simple to see how these different parts work together. So on this report we have a custom field just called SUDF. Here's the calculated field. And you can see that it's using this function script, RW table line string. A little bit easier to see how the whole script is right here. I've copied that out and pasted it into Notepad and broken out each one of the parameters. So what we have is RW table line string, and 4600 is the product ID. That part's always required. Now these next several fields, these are just, think of each one of these as a available parameter. You don't have to use it, but you can use it in order to retrieve information. So in this case, what we want to do is retrieve something based on the item number. We have another string field we could use. If we were doing a custom field related to a customer address, for example, then we would use both of these. The first one would be customer number, and then the second one would be populated with the address ID. We have a integer field here we can use. So another example might be if we are going to do a custom field for a sales document, we would have the SOP number in this parameter, and then this parameter would be our SOP type. We also have a couple of currency fields or decimal fields. An example here would be pulling information for a sales order line. So in that case, we need more information to retrieve that record. We would have SOP number, SOP type, and then a line number field. So then we have another decimal field, and then this last field, this is a very important part of GPREX. This is a control parameter, and this will tell GPREX which piece of data to go retrieve. So we'll look at this in a little bit. The gist of this is that you will use the same function, this RW table line string, for every custom field that you want to retrieve, and then for every custom field you'll increment this by 1. So if we are getting 4 different pieces of data, this will have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so once you've created the calculated field in Report Writer, the next step is to modify the GPREX stored procedure. There's 2 different stored procedures you can work with. There's RW table get line string, and there's RW table get line currency. What you'll do with these is you locate this in the list of stored procedures. You right click on it, script stored procedure, Alt or 2, new query editor window. So by default, the stored procedure has a little bit of code inside of it just to provide some examples of how you use it. So this is how the stored procedure will look right out of the box. This is just sample code. You can delete this. Well, you should delete it when you actually start using this in a live environment. Okay, so over here is RW table get line string. There are already a couple cases in here. So this is where this control parameter is. So coming back to the calculated field, the calculated field in the report, you can see how these fields match up. The product ID, this is actually used inside of GP to make sure we know which product is using RW table line string. So this is just used internally. This doesn't make it into the stored procedure. But then everything below, all these parameters, these make it into the stored procedure. So item number comes into string 1. String 2, which we're not using, comes into string 2. The integer is here. The 2 decimal fields. And then lastly, here's the control. And then down here, this is how I control is the control parameters used. And what we have are a bunch of different go-to statements. So it's pretty easy to add additional cases into this. If we have a new case, we would simply say if control equals 4, go to new param. You make up this name, so this can be anything. You should name it something that's informative, so it's easy to read the code and understand what the code is doing. But that's it. So you add the control. iControl4 goes to new param. We create a new go-to case down here for new param, and then after that we just add whatever our SQL code is to go locate the information that we want. So the calculated field that we created was using control parameter number 3. You see that comes in. The go-to case is called Z item UDF1, which comes down here. And with this, we're actually retrieving information from another database. We'll be running this report in Fabricam, which is TWO. And then we have this test database called ztest. And it's going to go retrieve the item user defined field number 2 from this other database, and that's set as our return parameter. Now, before we run the report in the Fabricam database, I just wanted to jump over here into this z-test database and take a look at the user-defined field number 2. So in the z-test company, we have z-test in user-defined field number 2. So now we'll flip over into Fabricam and run the report. Now we're over in Fabricam. We're going to pull up 128 SDRAM in item maintenance and print the item report. And you can see that it's pulling z-test off of 128 SDRAM in the test database. So another nice thing about GPREX is how easy it is to make changes to the calculated field without having to go into Report Writer and change things inside of Report Writer. Once you have the user-defined field set up, you can just come into the stored procedure and make changes to it here, and then that information will show up automatically on the report without having to make any changes to the report. So here we're going to do a really simple test of this. Instead of retrieving the user-defined field from the test database, now we're just going to add a percent sign to the end of the item number. So it's a quick change, modify the stored procedure, come back into GP, run the report, and now you can see that the 128 SDRAM, the item number, is showing up with the percent sign on the report. So to summarize, GP Report Extender, or GPREX, is a tool that allows you to easily get any field from any table onto any GP Report Writer report. If you can get to the data with a SQL query, you can get to it with GPREX, and you'll be able to get that information onto a report. If you'd like to learn more about this product or any of the other Willowware software, please visit us at willowware.com or send us an email at sales@willowware.com.